Oh. Okay, we don't have to talk until we've taken a sip of this. It's a bit too much, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I do what you tell me.
Yeah.
For how long?
That's a preferred story, isn't it? So, here we are, end of the day. Mark, please can you take the top of the screen? Thank you, so sorry, I just think I'll be distracted, I'll think I'm at work or something, like with a file folder. Yeah, that's good.
Just put a picture of Gail up there.
Oh dear. You've done really well today, actually, in not deflecting back and doing your natural honouring of others. You really, really managed well. Do you recognise that about Imelda, the honouring? One of the things that's really special, I think, about what I've learnt, and I noticed Vicky Reynolds, when she talks, she connects this with you, is the need to reference, the need to honour people who've gone before and their contributions. And here we all are honouring you. There's something nicely recursive going on here, I think.
When I got out my inner narcissist and I broke it along today.
Really helpful. Now this is exactly what we need to be able to do as systemic practitioners, is know how to be different selves depending on the context. And yeah, well, there's so many places. What should we talk about?
I don't know, you tell me.
Oh Lord. Okay. Well, what I thought we might do is have just a little bit of reflection on the day, and then actually make some space to hear from other people, so that they don't feel... A couple of people have said that they want to say something else. So you're going to have to keep the narcissist self going a little bit, or whatever it was, how you described it. And is this a video, Michael, or a photo? I just want to know, that's all.
You're looking wonderful.
Thank you. So we'll make some time for other people to connect back, not just with ideas, because this isn't only an ideas space today, it's been a
Art space.
Yeah. Actually, sometimes these are very useful distinctions, aren't they? Because we're always struggling for these other words and terminologies we can use. But I suppose, I'll tell you what I've been thinking, and I'm interested to hear your response. I was thinking, I wonder if this is a day like this, and I hadn't anticipated this, I wonder if a day like this, Festschrift, has increased your sense of responsibility, or allowed you to let go of some of that responsibility, because of the kind of tributes and acknowledgements people have been paying to you. Where are you at with all of that?
Well, two people have said that my work has just begun. And I think I'm sitting opposite the person who's making sure that that's going to happen. Because she always has another project in mind for me.
Who's this then?
You.
Oh, all right.
She's determined that I will never go into retirement. So that's one piece of it, and that resonates. I think I've never made a distinction between my personal life and my professional life, really. It's been always a passion, following my passion. So I think as long as we breathe and we can be active and we're compos mentis, we're blessed enough to be that way, then we have a responsibility. So I don't know, I think I said it to you many times that I just wanted to be, today, to be something that we can take forward. The whole community, all of us, together, individually, in our own particular ways.
What ways do you think most need to happen for people, together or separately, to take things forward? What would you put top of your list for the systemic community to deal with? To be bold, to borrow. I loved some of those pictures of you earlier. I mean, I just wanted to, I felt a sense of loss that I hadn't really been around to know you and hang out with you when you were this amazing, energized, chutzpahdik young girl. I'm trying not to kind of.
That's why we were famous. We decided the three of us last week.
And you said this, I think that's just crap. I think because I think it might have been a vehicle through which to hold people's attention temporarily, but when they actually got to hear the what and the attitude, the meaning, the passion, and the conviction, and the courage to have the conviction, then I think people were listening and probably realising, for example, their cultural limitations, the limitations of the theories in other contexts. So I was asking, what would you put top of your list for people to deal with, to take away and borrow from some of that chutzpahdik, that feisty, younger you, that in a way we can pass something on?
Well, one of the things as we've talked about today is elders and the role of elders, and I think it's something Laura talked about, of, you know, being able to speak with our colleagues and not have in a language game that nobody has access to. And I think more recently, just being one of my rants, is that we've been too led by non-clinicians, so people who are not experienced in the field, in the cut and the thrust of work with people who are living on the edge.
So you're talking about our dear and loved colleagues who've trained in philosophy or social construction and other academic theories, as opposed to the kind of learning through experience of doing social work, psychology.
I'm thinking more of the early family therapists. I mean, nobody better loves the philosophers and the thinkers, and I think they always have to have a place because they're the ones who kind of sometimes push the boundaries. But actually, in sitting down and being in a relationship with somebody who has a very difficult life situation in front of you, or a group of people, whether it's a family or a community or an organisation or whatever it is, and actually knowing and feeling and seeing what the connections and the relationships are like, and working in the in-between spaces. I mean, Nora calls them the liminal spaces in Project the Fifth Province, but, you know, there's many words for it. And so I think whoever are those like extraordinarily gifted people, I think we have to go back to them. And look, we may not do it the same. I mean, obviously there'd be ideas that we wouldn't want to take on board, some very politically incorrect ideas, or ideas that they're not of this time. But I think some of the practices are very useful. I think we've got to learn to know how to touch and see systems or interconnections, interconnectivity and process. I don't think there's enough teaching about that. And I was very fortunate.
But are you talking about human systems? When you say interconnection between systems, are you limiting it?
Well, not really.
Systems? So
we're thinking of how we are with animals and how we are with nature and how we are with the environment. What we do with the oceans and what we do with the air and climate, what?
Political systems.
Big time political systems, yeah. But just in terms of what we can do in terms of linking the micro to the macro, because I do believe it begins, I mean, something that Nora's stepmother, Margaret Mead, has said is that change is brought about by the actions of a few people. Indeed, that's the only thing that's ever changed the world. And I really do believe that. And if you think of all the small communities that actually were there at the beginning of the systemic field, that's what happened. It was communities all over the place, but they were communities that were meeting often behind closed doors, and we may have to do that. But now people are, I think we're distracted by the word stress. You know, that we feel that if we're working hard that we have to be stressed. I mean, you can work hard and love what you're doing and then you're not stressed. Okay, you need to take a rest, you need to take time out, and you need to go on your holidays, whatever you need to do to kind of restore yourself, you know. But I think there's something to me that's very distracting about this word stress. We're stressed out of our minds and everything. Because we're swallowing whole all the bullshit that's out there in terms of whether it's managed care or whether it's evidence-based or whether it's manualised work. I mean, if you go back to the early books in family therapy, there were manuals. We don't have to swallow them whole. We can say, right, well, that's a good idea. How can we do that and how can we be creative around it? Which is what I think we did in our early training programs. We took the manuals, whether it was Haley or Minuchin or whoever it was, and the transcripts of tapes. And I think one of the great training methods that we used in the early days, and I don't know whether my older colleagues here would agree with this, were the videotapes. Now there's so much political correctness, and I really think that's in the interest of Big Pharma. All this ethics stuff around who you can show and what you can show in a group of dedicated professionals who are going to observe confidentiality, to actually see the work of senior clinicians making a difference in people's lives. You know, I think I don't think you can replace that with something where somebody's just come in and is telling you a story. And you know, I mean, I use that. There's usefulness in that. But so I think if you think what's top of the list, I think we need to go back to practice.
So one of the distinctions I make when I look at what you've been doing in the course of your working life, particularly when you got into family therapy ideas, is that you probably weren't employed as a family therapist. You were probably employed in some other contexts initially. Social work, for example.
Well, I was untrained as a family therapist, so I could never be employed.
Yeah. Well, and so that makes me think about where the profession was at. What do you think? I mean, if you see part of your identity as a family therapist or as somebody practicing family therapy might have been that you were involved in a profession that was changing fast, frequently, developing texts, finding new readings, developing new practice, developing new networks with each other. Important influencing networks for practice. My worry is that family therapists have become employees.
And we've become too old.
What do you mean?
I think we're all, a lot of us are old, and this field is not sustainable unless we have young people. So we need to actually get out and mentor our young, put our arms around them and fortify them and send them out. We were allowed to run a training program in Dublin in a department of child psychiatry. I was 26, I think, 27. Nolly was in her early 30s. Phil was younger than me, 2 years younger than me. I mean, who in this day and age would let a group of 20-something, 30-something out running a program? But we need to do something that, well, we had people holding us, that was the other thing. And the other thing we did, we linked with our elders. Because I remember Fanny Morell, in EFTA, and you were saying, well, how do we get this training? And I said, look at the people whom we want to follow, and then affiliate with them. I don't know if you remember that, but I remember saying it to you. And I think that's what we did. You know, we linked with Minuchin, we linked with Jaquine, we linked with Monica, we linked with Lynn, who were all older than us. Well, Monica wasn't. And that's where we got our inspiration. I remember in my office in UCD, I had a whole panel of photographs up on the wall, and people would say, why are all those on the walls? And I said, well, that's my network, but it was my foreign network with us three in the middle.
Sometimes you do have to look outside of your own town or in your own registering body to find those inspirations.
Yeah, but I think we need to do it, and I think push and not get too seduced by this word stress. Because I think we're really enjoying what we're doing, and we're getting good feedback from our clients and our patients, or whatever we choose to call them, and stop using the kind of commercialized language. And I find our passions, if we have passion, but we also need to have a younger field. So when I see Nora and Mai and Fergus and Naz and others who are young going out there, I say yes, this is where we need to go.
I think that's probably one of the most important messages. Younger people, but for me, I keep coming back to the boldness, because I think there's something about being an employee, the family therapy profession, and certainly in the UK, having been turned into a field of employees, that people feel the power has been taken away from them in terms of choosing an approach, or choosing how to run a training course, or what counts as a qualification, and so on, many, many things. So that's why, in a way, part of my invitation and wanting to kind of create this environment for everybody to acknowledge what you've been doing. It isn't just the ideas, is it? It's so much more than that. It isn't just the hugs and the warmth and the caring. It's been that other stuff that's quite hard to name, to do with living on the edge, stretching the edges, developing new practices, criticising ideas and theories, pointing to where there's power imbalances, where there are cultural restrictions to how life, family life, is being understood. These are really important gifts, and for me, if I could pass a bit of your systemic DNA around the room, it would be about saying, please let's be bold, like those kids were back then. Because if we're not bold, then we're going down, and there's so that's some of. I was thinking when I was texting Gwyn and saying, "Oh, what am I going to talk to Imelda about?" Anyway, she wrote me some very good things. Also, what gave rise to you wanting to honour her in such a gathering? Well, it was a long time ago, so I have absolutely no idea anymore. It was only a few months ago. Was it? Just a few months ago. Oh well, there we are. But anyway, I think it's, I was thinking it's hard to organise my thoughts, and I felt quite moved and overwhelmed by everybody else's startlingly wonderful contributions today. That I was thinking about how important you are in my life and other people's lives, and that's it's a sort of sense of satellites, your satellites, and satellites around ideas and values and practices, and I've got distracted by the satellite image, and I'm going off to many places.
Going back, I saw when we were travelling, and around the time of the Teams conferences, I had this metaphor that I described. There were starbursts, and they're kind of satellites, and we've used it in our group many, many times since. Of this idea of feeding off each other. We supported each other, we visited each other, and even Peter and Helga brought me to the Republic of Yorkshire one time, particularly when I didn't know where I was going. We visited each other, we watched each other work, and that's, I think, missing now.
Well, it was a much more experimental field rather than the reproductive of method, or getting through caseload field, and or maybe it was both. But it was experimental. But part of the experimentalness was the networking, was the daring to go to the.
But a lot of that was done after work. A lot of that was done on weekends.
Oh.
We were still in doing our social work or psychology or whatever it was, psychiatry, for a lot of the week, and towing the line. I mean, when I went to work in the Mater with those guys down there, it was a very orthodox, conservative Catholic institution.
Right.
And we had to sign up to a Catholic ethos. So we couldn't talk to clients about certain things. We couldn't talk about abortion, couldn't talk about family planning, we wouldn't dare call it contraception. They would divorce. We couldn't talk about anything like those. But we did it. Because who's going to know what you're talking about to somebody behind closed doors?
So then we're back to systemic therapy is a form of secret transgressive practice.
Well, it
That
could be.
big practice is private practice,
Yeah.
meaning people don't know what's really going
Yeah,
on.
it's like we worked together, you know, in a darkened room for a number of years. The man people, even though they ran their own institute, they went around the corner to a cafe. You hear the stories of teams working in secret, you know, but a lot of it done after work
Okay,
times.
so I think this is very important. This is perhaps for me, as somebody who's interested in the development and the future of the systemic profession, one of the most important points. It ain't going to... What was that wonderful saying by, I can't remember, the name won't come to me right now, Jewish philosopher woman, Hannah Arendt, maybe? How something like, how dare you think, or you don't have to, what makes you think you have to obey, but it's put much more powerfully than that. You don't have the right to obey. If you think about that, you don't have the right to obey. It's an extraordinary...
Not when it's harming the people that we're saying, when we know it is. And I don't know what idea we have in our head that we have to follow rules and regulations and the door is shut behind us. And we have a certain, you know...
But the highest context is relational ethics.
Yes.
And that's the tension in our profession at the moment, as I see it, is that if we're being told, instructed how to practice in a method-led way, instead of using our improvised, in-the-moment ways of knowing, then we're not going to be responding in a whatever it takes kind of way. So I suppose part of why I was keen for you to have this space and to be celebrated today in this way by so many people is to have some of these, that the knowledge didn't come from whatever that expression is, licking the road or whatever it is. It came out of, and sometimes the word passion, I think, is almost like a decontextualized feeling. It's a politicized commitment. It's an ethical imperative that you felt at times. Yes, you found the ideas exciting, you loved the connections, all these things, you still do. But you still are committed to saying difficult things, as you have done with me. And I was thinking about what, was it Phil or Fergus? I'm so sorry, I've just got you mixed up as two kind of systemic Irish chaps.
All right.
Just you men.
Well, anyway, one of them said, I think it was Fergus who said, I got, told to take my essay back immediately. And then later on said, thank you. And I was thinking, I know you've been terrified of going to whip out my MSc, no, it wasn't MSc, it was PG Dip exam where you were the external. He said, you're not going to beat me up with that, are you? This is the whole point of it. And I was thinking how for many years I sort of thought, what the bloody hell was she, what was she doing asking that question? It was a question about Jeremy Bentham's notion of panopticon as used by Foucault. PG Dip, systemic therapy, KCC, feel sorry for the person I was then. But now I do feel that saying thank you is the right thing, because you took a risk. You took me further than I knew what to do with in that moment. A typical systemic thing of, well, actually, maybe the question is an intervention. Well, it was. And while I couldn't see that for a very long while, the value of it, I just felt got at. Got at and sort of applauded for being brilliant or something like that. But actually, it's really taken me when I was ready into other spaces, into reading other stuff. So I think that's part of the courage, and I think he went beyond what KCC would typically do in that kind of setting, because marvellous and amazing as an institution as they were, I felt that was a very stretching question that I hadn't had in that context, that they knew to bring you in and they knew to invite you back. And I remember when Helen McCarthy and Lees-Moorhouse and I were at the conference training in a woman's voice. Do you remember? The three of us were sitting at the back, and we'd been asking for Imelda McCarthy to be brought onto to teach us on the professional doctorate and systemic practice many times. At the end of the year, we'd make a list. Who do you want to visit? Imelda McCarthy's up the list. Who would you like to kind of come and consult you? Imelda McCarthy's up the list. Nothing happened. So eventually, we heard you, and we were all just going, we're going to Dublin, we're going to Dublin. So we went to Dublin and got what we needed from you there, and it was fantastic. And I thank you for so many things, but I do feel responsible in a way, because I don't know what I'd do without you, and I will probably never behave sensitively enough to know when to not contact you.
Please ever don't get that sensitive. But do you know what? Do you remember what Judy said about, you know, students that come along once in a lifetime? I mean, they were just fantastic people, students in KCC, and taking Nolig's or Nora's darling father's idea of having the poor old dolphins leap more than everybody else thought they could leap. I would think, you know, these people can leap, and I would want to see, I loved to ask questions just to see how far you guys could leap.
And look,
and I was never disappointed. So I saw in you that kind of brilliance.
jolly good. Moving on.
So, yeah, exactly. Find your inner narcissist.
Yeah. But I am also aware of time. And I know some people want to say some things. And Karen's got a mic, a roving mic over there, and Naz wants to say something, and I know...
I don't need mine. I'm from Yorkshire, we don't need mine.
Yeah, and Arlene wants to say something. Okay, Naz, speak up.
Okay. I've got this really bad habit of meeting people and having no idea who it is I'm meeting.
You do need a mic.
I do need a mic. Okay. What I was
Better.
I have this really bad habit of meeting academics and having no idea who these people are, so I meet them on a human level first. And I've had the same experience with Gail being my supervisor and then Imelda. And I meet these incredible women, and you were both saying about needing to teach people how to do it again. And I didn't learn your ways through reading your papers. I've only started reading in the last 2 years, so I need to start referencing in my thesis now. Before that, I never read anything you wrote. I learned from the kind of people you were. And I think we're talking about practitioners, but there's two other levels that you taught me, and it's not just about talking to the practitioners and other academics. It's about not having an intervention. Like we talk about the working class and the people that need our help, like we're doing something to them. We don't need to do anything to them. We need to talk with them. And it's using... I've used some of your theories and spoke to clients about it, and it's changed their lives. Not because I've used it as an intervention, it's because I've taught them what's going on with them. And it's that idea, and I think if you want to commit to a revolution, it's teach people what's going on around them, rather than try and do an intervention as a systemic practitioner. That one I get. The other level that Imelda taught me, I'm still struggling with. So I had the pleasure of being invited to Dublin, and I was part of a meditation group, and if anyone knows me, I don't do meditation very well at all. So I got to it, I could center myself, I finally quieted the voices, it was all okay. And then Imelda started saying things like, let's send out love to the people in the world. Like, yeah, I get it, send out love to everyone, yeah. Let's send out love to the politicians. What the fuck? And I just started naming them, like Donald Trump. I was like, what the fuck is this cult-like stuff going on? And I didn't get it. And it was afterwards that I sat and spoke to her, and she said, you have to send love and light to these people because they're the ones that need it most. And they were the two profound things that I learned. And I thank the lineage, because I will tell you that there is an Islamic concept. If you're going to learn Islam or Islamic studies, you have to do it the lineage. So you have a sheikh, and then you follow the sheikh, and you follow sheikh. And I've had the privilege to be taught by Gail and supervised by Gail, and then follow the lineage onto Imelda. But you are the people that live their ethics. And that's what I think is the most incredible thing about meeting people like you. I've met a lot of my stars and been disappointed because what they write on paper might be profound, but you meet them and they're just not nice people. And I think I see you as people first and academics second.
I just wanted to add my voice of thanks and gratitude to Imelda for the last 25 years. And Nora talked about how much you love raising people up. And I felt very much beholden to the raising up that you did for me. At the 21st birthday party at the Irish Family Therapy Association in Dublin, you introduced me to Lynn Hoffman. And you said, tell Lynn all about your work in Belfast Darning and working with families affected by the conflict. So I talked to her for a little while and she said, you have to write this up. You owe it to the field, it's your duty. And I was like, okay, I will. So I did. It doesn't come easy to me to write. But then when the possibility came up after the Good Friday Agreement of money to open a family trauma centre, I had something to attach to that proposal. And then you provided supervision and help and support and guidance through 15 years of the life of the Family Trauma Centre and helped keep me sane and together, and you're a woman of your word. Everything that has been said about you is true, because that's what you do. You just don't talk, you do it, and I'm eternally grateful. Thank you.
We have time for a few more questions. Or responses. And what was that? Don't force them into anything. They're standing silence. Yeah.
I don't have a question. So many questions. I just want to say that everything I've heard about Imelda today resonates with all my experience of her. But the thing that sticks out for me more than anything else is not just her warmth, but her risk-taking in her warmth. It's never her risk-taking and her invitation to be a risk-taker oneself, which I've never really been able to quite follow, as she well knows, is always sort of circled with great depth of empathy and warmth. And I think it's been so successful. But I also want to say, Gail, for me, by bringing us all here together, and in a way bringing two cultures together, the Irish culture within the British UK context, and everything that's been happening was enormous. For me, is enormously courageous. It's very different. It's a bit of a risk, and today has just been wonderful because you couldn't know how it would go, and I think it's just been tremendous. Thank you.
I just want to thank you because you really inspire, and I really love your talk about being subversive and daring not to follow rules. To me, as a younger generation, it's super difficult to find people who dare to talk about that, and it's so important, and you're so inspiring to me.
Thank you.
Anything else anybody wants to add? There will be time over the wine reception. There's somebody else at the back. Through is good.
I just want to say that being here today makes me proud to be Irish and to honour all of the stories that have been told through our Irish culture, but maybe more important than that, in the shadow of, dare I mention, Brexit, that in some way a community maybe has begun to be formed here today that could be really important and could be really possible for us to hold that joint Irish-English culture, maybe that I think will be important in the future. So in some way, maybe Gail, that's something, I don't know whether you intended that, but it just strikes me in terms of a political context that this gathering here could really shape something different for the future, and thank you for that. And of course, thanks to Imelda for a very professional and personal support that she's given me over the years, but maybe in this context that the other is more important. Thank you.
Hi. I just want to say it's amazing to be here because it's not just you, Imelda, or you, Gail, or it's about the people in this room, and I'm so conscious that we've had younger people from different cultures, and I'm very conscious of not being KCC, but having been profoundly influenced by the influence of various people in a very encompassing way. It's like your spirals become ever-expanding circles of connections. And I'm so aware of different people in this community of people who are actually linking out across east to west. That was something that for me was like, I get it. You know, there are colleagues in Singapore, there are colleagues in Bangladesh, there are colleagues all over the world who have been connected by these ideas. And I just think that, for me, I read you when I was doing sexual abuse and didn't understand your paper at all, but had some idea that there was a safe space that you could have contradictions in, and that was enough to be able to look at some of the power issues between abuser and abused. So for me it was very early on, but quite complicated to understand what you were on about. But I kind of want to say that it's one person at a time that you change the world. Somebody said that. But I'm amazed at the amount of power and connection in this room with various other people who are talking about creativity, about subversion, about handing on the torch of diplomatic rebellion, perhaps, of being alongside enough to the systems to be able to subvert in powerful ways. So I think it's about the ever-widening circles and hoping that that will extend downwards to the training organisations and to the new people coming into the field. And I'm very conscious of Bateson being in the room in many very different forms now. So yes, but I think it's more than a congratulations day. I actually think it's about passing on a torch, and that's very powerful.
Thank you. We have time for one or two more responses or thoughts.
Imelda, I'm going to take my courage in both hands and try and speak. I think you've heard what your friends are saying, your family, the people in the room. But what I'd like to do is actually bring all the voices of all the people that you have directly and indirectly helped through us, through many, many other family therapists, and just to think how far they would spread.
Thank you very much. My name is Mara Kenny, and I just wanted to say that I have known Imelda for 43 years. Started working together in child guidance in Ballymun, and I was just struck by Raglan Road earlier on because it's also my favourite song, and I would sing it when I'm drunk. But Patrick Kavanagh said, unless the clay was in the mouth, the singer wouldn't be a good singer. Basically saying that integrity and being able to sing, and in Imelda's case, is about her integrity, her loyalty, being so rooted and so true to herself, and she always has been, always will be. And I admire her for all of that, and for her friendship and courage and loyalty, and to Michael as well for inviting me into their home when I first went to Dublin. But Raglan Road and Patrick Kavanagh, I just associate with Imelda and that sort of greatness and being grounded and all of that. Okay.
I have to tell you a funny story about Luke Kelly, though. Molly said she didn't think she'd tell it, but it's actually a funny story. When I was about 19 and I was as cocky as they come, I was invited to this party in an artist who actually became one of our well-known female artists' home. And in the house that night at the party were the Dubliners. Are you familiar with the Dubliners group? And so Luke Kelly was there, and Luke Kelly had this wild red hair, and they were all behaving very outrageously, and they were quite drunk. And me, in my prissy way, when I was leaving the party, went over to them and said, particularly to Luke Kelly, you were a disgrace. And walked out. And he must have been stunned or something, I don't know. But he followed me out, and as I walked down the lane away from the house with the friends I was with, he shouted out at the top of his voice, "You're nothing but a bandy-legged whore."
I wonder whether there's no way I can really follow this, so I'll just do some segue to something else here. I wonder if on that raucous note we could move into the wine reception and maybe carry on some conversations there. But first I want to say some thank yous. Firstly, I want to say thank you to everybody who's come here today. I mean, it is a Saturday, and people have travelled from at least some countries that I know about: Sweden, Italy, the Netherlands, the United States. Where else am I?
Singapore.
Singapore. Well, Singapore doesn't really count. Yorkshire, the Republic of Yorkshire. And then, of course, yes, Ryanair was commandeered from Dublin both last night and this morning. That was really nice to hear about. The point is that people have made an effort from wherever they have come, whether it's across London or and out to Luton or wherever. So thank you all for making such a big effort. We really, really appreciate it. It's been easy, hasn't it? You know, this event was booked up very quickly. So what does that tell you? Very interesting. I also want to thank Malcolm, who is our resident star in the Malcolm's been with us on a few trips and always has the most interesting, insightful philosophical reflections after these kind of events, and I look forward to more, maybe, sharing them with Imelda. Thank you to Janine and Graham, who've been working really hard behind the video and taking loads of photos. Thank you so, so much for schlepping from your double identity as one of the most talented systemic therapists. Sorry to do this to you, dear, that I know, and but was also a good photographer. Thank you also to all the helpers today, from the Friends of KCC. A lot of people have been doing stuff, helping out one way or another, and also to a lot of the people on the professional doctorate and systemic practice, some of whom came up with this concept of border, that this was the moment to acknowledge border issues, and made that wonderful banner out there and came up with that great questionnaire of what's the purpose of your journey and what have you got in your bag stuff. Well, actually, maybe these are quite good questions for right now, and I think they thought that, and that's why they put them together. Over the wine reception, please do put a mark on this network map, which will take a photograph of or bundle up for the Ryanair return flight, if you're allowed to take rolled up paper on Ryanair these days, without paying an absolute fortune. It's not 22 centimetres wide or longer. So thank you, and the biggest thank you, I think, have I forgotten anybody besides you, Kiri? No. Okay, so the biggest thank you goes really to Kiri as chair of the Friends of KCC. Another good example, I was thinking while we were talking about how we can create something in our spare time on Saturdays, and that when organisations like KCC sadly go under, we can still create community. But it takes commitment, and a lot of commitment from people to get together, to take responsibility for a programme, for arranging a venue. But Kiri and I together, we work very well together, don't we? We're still talking now. Yeah. Of course we are. Kiri and I really enjoy working together, and it's been a real pleasure working with you, and you're one of those very discreet people that does a lot of stuff behind the scenes. So it's been very easy to make this event happen in some ways because we work well together, and there have been other people in the Friends of KCC who've offered a lot of support as well. So thank you to everybody. This is a community effort. It isn't about individuals. It's about joint action and vision and living it. We invite you now to just chill, get out of those seats, go and get some wine. If you need to move on, do say goodbye to somebody before you leave. And Imelda wants to say something. Oh, I forgot to say, oh, wait a minute. And I'd like to say thank you to our guest of honour. I knew there was something.
Yes, absolutely. Go. I just want to thank you all for coming and making this the most astounding day of my life, apart from the day that I got married. I think it's up there, and I just can't thank you enough for travelling across Britain and from the north and south and east of Ireland. From the Republic of Yorkshire, of course. From Wales, they let you out, Jim. Oh. And of course he's Scot, so Scotland. And all of you who spoke today. Just you've been part, with some others, of my community of inspirers, and I mean, you've shaped me, a lot of you, both in mentoring and friendship and in studenthood and so on. So it goes backwards and forwards. And I also want to remember to all the people who are not here, who we would have loved to have had here. And I'm thinking particularly of Peter Lang. And I know Martin is not that well. And I'm thinking of Brian Kane, I'm thinking of John Burton, and then John Burton, I should say. I'm thinking of Shakeen and Tom Anderson and Boscolo and all of those other just amazing people that have been so important to us. So I just want to remember that, and also the people who have been part of my conversational community, and Burr very much down there has been part of that. Aaron Solomon, who wanted to be here, who suffered a devastating stroke about 6 years ago and is very disabled, but he was prepared to think about coming with 2 to 3 assistants that he has, but in the end he just wasn't able to come. But I spent about 10 years working with him and travelling with him. So an extremely important person in my formation. And of course, we had the Witches that went on for years, our Women in Therapy chapter. So we met after the first Women's Colloquium, and another important context. And of course, my Sangha, when we meet every week and we have glorious conversations together and wonderful silences, and they're just amazing. But thank you for being here, and thank you for being part of my life, and for making me who I am. And you know, I want to just thank Kiri, who's been just fantastic. We met physically for the first time, and I hope it will be 400 many, many times. And we're not doing Festschrift next year. I know. No?
Maybe we'll do a follow-up with some of them.
And then Gail and Gwyn, who are my 2 wise women. I refer to them as my 2 wise women, because I never sit in their company that I don't come away with some kind of really interesting idea. And you've been just the most incredible friend, and loving and inspirational and kick up the ass kind of friend, you know, keeping me moving and dressing me down and making sure I'm not retiring and all the rest of it. And I want you to thank you for that, and also Gwyn. and my love to her, and also the biggest hugs to you. That would be good. And I'm looking forward to working with Jim later on, and Monica in March, and
yes, you're going to be next appearance. Watch this space. IFTA, Aberdeen, Trini, if you want to schlep to Aberdeen.
And Chris Hanna, maybe we're thinking of doing a retreat for systemic therapists. So that maybe in the autumn we have to find a venue. I think we found one, but that would be nice. And you might come, Roberta. So thank you all. And thank you, everybody.